Hello and welcome. Thank you for coming this morning. I am James Mitchell, President of the National League of Cities and council member from Charlotte, North Carolina. We are a collection of bipartisan local elected officials here to discuss the economic impacts of the Community Development Block Grant Program in our cities and counties. We are joined today by hundreds of mayors and council members who are on Capitol Hill to tell Congress about the critical role this program plays in our community for job creations. We are urging Congress to maintain the federal funding for CDBG program at $4 billion. CDBG is a catalyst for growth that links private sector money with government seed money to multiply the impacts of funds in our community. The report results we are releasing here today suggest that a federal investment of $4 billion in CDBG creates 120,000 jobs and contributes almost $11 billion to the national economy. Over 7,000 local governments of every size use the CDBG to address their own community and economic development needs. Local businesses, service providers are prime beneficiaries of these funds. They use them to train and hire workers while transforming their neighborhoods. Joining me here today are representatives of the United States Conference of Mayors, the National Association of Counties. They will speak to the positive effects this program have on the financial well-being of their communities. But first, let's hear from the famous author, James, of the independent report that detailed the contribution of this program on the nation's economy. Repeat after me, CDBG. 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 Thank you.
Thank you. IHS Global Insight is proud to join the Conference of Mayors, the League of Cities, and the National Association of Counties as they express their overwhelming support of the Community Development Block Grant Program. Global Insight has had a dozen-year-long collaboration with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, authoring a series of reports analyzing U.S. metro economies and the policies and trends that affect them. Our primary conclusion has been that metro economies are the engines of U.S. economic growth, that healthy metro economies are necessary for the economic well-being of the nation. This year, we've been engaged to provide an independent analysis of the economic impact of the CDBG program. In this study, released today, in preliminary version, we developed estimates of the economic benefits which accrue to local economies, local communities, as a result of the projects that are funded by CDBG grants. Notice that our focus is on the economic benefits. We acknowledge, but leave it to you all to consider, the numerous social benefits derived from many of these programs, and we don't attempt to quantify these. And these economic benefits are local ones. The broad-based benefits in jobs, income, taxes, that are received in the local community the program is intended to serve. Offshored or outsourced jobs are not included here. We took detailed itemizations of each city's or county's use of CDBG funds and paired those with our regional local economic models to estimate their direct and indirect benefits in terms of jobs, incomes, gross metro product, and state and local tax revenues. In this way, we don't assume that all spending is equal in its economic benefit. The indirect or spillover or multiplier impacts of economic development spending, of real estate construction, and infrastructure spending are high, while the indirect economic impacts of public services to the elderly, disabled, or needy are lower, though we certainly are aware of their social utility. So we take a case study approach here. Here we have 10 examples in our preliminary report so that we can really focus on the local economic benefits to each of those communities. Summarizing those 10 cases, we find that $300 million in an annual average in the last decade of CDBG grants results in 9,000 new jobs per year, direct and indirect jobs, and $800 million in new gross metropolitan product. That's a cost per job of only $33,000 each. That's very efficient among other economic development projects that are sponsored across the nation. And a GMP, gross metro product multiplier, of 2.7 times the grant amount. Now, I'll note that these numbers do include projects that are leveraged by the grant. That is, additional funds are provided in the financing from other sources. But clearly, the CDBG grant is a major factor in enabling the projects. We do, though, in the report, provide estimates of the impacts without those leveraged funds, without those additional funds as well. So, our conclusions. From a strictly economic standpoint, this has been a very effective program. If I were to extrapolate these results, and I'm not making a rigorous national estimate here in our preliminary report, but they suggest that the CDBG program in the last decade generated, per year, 147,000 new jobs across the country and $13 billion in GDP. Thank you and good luck.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Kouts. I'm the mayor of the city of Burnsville and president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Ladies and gentlemen, mayors take special exception to the cuts proposed to the Community Development Block Grant. We have just heard the report from Global Insights. Now, if nobody in Capitol Hill has connected the dots, I hope that this morning they will. CDBG is a very flexible federal program that comes directly to cities. And what we do with those funds, you have heard, we leverage. You have heard that we make a big difference with the funds that they give to us. And we are there to make a difference in the lives of the people that it serves. But more importantly, if Congress hasn't heard, the economic impact. So the preliminary report on CDBG shows us that it creates jobs, it fosters economic development, and it leverages private investment in thousands of cities throughout our country. The program was created, if you haven't heard, under the administration of President Richard Nixon, and it has worked fabulously for 36 years, and it has had strong bipartisan support in Congress. CDBG program shows proven results, and this is not just anecdotal information, ladies and gentlemen. This is results that we have had an independent group do the work for us, Global Insights. And so we have heard and we have those reports. And it has been funding programs that help our seniors, help our children, and help the community grow. And it has helped in the recovery of our nation. So reducing funding to CDBG would shift the cost. Where do you think that shift is going to go? It's going to come to the property tax. So when the federal government or the state government says we're going to cut funding to cities, they have not thought very deeply about what will happen. The needs will not go away. The needs are always going to be there. And the cost is shifted back to us, or the programs are eliminated. And then what happens? The need doesn't go away. It will find its way back, whether to the state government, and then they can't pay for it, they'll shift it back to the property tax. Goes to the federal government and some program, and they'll say, well, cut that. And where will it go? It's a vicious cycle. And if they haven't connected the dots, it impacts the federal treasury, the jobs, income tax. So it will have an effect. So simply stated is that the needs that we help through CDBG are not going to go away. And we as local officials understand this, because when we do our budgets, we just don't do a cut that's draconian. What we do is we look at each and every program, and we ask the question, at least in Burnsville, what is it? Who does it serve? And at what cost? And we look at all of the cost benefits to all of it. So we make tough decisions on the local level every day to balance our budgets each year, and we have already been forced to cut city service and on the local level. So the economic report that we heard shows that by the end of this year, more than 100 metropolitan areas will still have double-digit unemployment. And the nation's mayors were here in January, and we returned in February now. And we are back now to let the legislators know that CDBG is critical to the people of our communities. And we will keep returning so that the voices of our people will be heard in Congress. And we will tell them of the impacts. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, the people that we serve on the local level is a shared constituent with the people who are here in Washington, but we know it because we live with them every day. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tarrant County Judge Glenn Whitley, and this year I have the honor of serving as president of the National Association of Counties. The National Association of Counties represents the 3,068 counties across this country. We were here last week in our legislative conference, and the CDBG program was certainly one of those programs which was a lot of our discussion centered around the funding for that. I would say to you from Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth, Texas, it's the nation's 4th largest metroplex area, that CDBG has meant a great deal to us. The county itself has 41 cities in there. Fort Worth, Arlington are our 2 major cities. They each have their own CDBG funds that come directly to them, but the county administers the CDBG funds for the other 39 communities, the other 39 cities within Tarrant County. And as such, we've had an opportunity to look at what's happened, and over the last 5 years, what we've basically had, you keep hearing the word leveraged. Well, over the last 5 years, the federal government has put in about $18 million. The local cities have put up around $15 million for a total of about $33 million. That money has then turned around and gone out to a great extent in infrastructure projects, streets, sewer lines, water lines. Over that 5-year period of time, we have created over 1,200 private jobs, not government jobs, private jobs. Over that period of time, we have averaged, in fact, over the life, you heard just mentioned a few minutes ago that this program has been in place for 36 years. Our average over a 35-year period has been approximately 25 construction projects per year in the municipalities within our area. So again, what we're talking about is leveraged dollars, not where the federal government is simply putting the only dollars in the game. It's being matched. And so what we have tried to say to Congress, and will continue to say to Congress, is to look at your programs as you're going about looking at your cuts. Instead of taking a hatchet, look at sometimes taking a scalpel, and be careful not to cut those programs that are using leverage dollars as you go about trying to right the course on this country. So that's one of the things that we look at, and as we talk with folks throughout the country, this CDBG and the leverage dollars that it means to all of our cities and counties is extremely important. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Ted Ellis. I'm the mayor of Bluffton in northeastern Indiana and first vice president of the National League of Cities. I come here on behalf of a different constituency. Bluffton has 10,000 residents, and in fact is one of the 7,000 communities around the United States where the Community Development Block Grant funds actually flow through states or other local authorities. And even more probably than anyone else, these small communities of ours feel the impact of Community Development Block Grant funds to provide clean water, to provide transportation infrastructure, to provide necessary wastewater and stormwater services. And sometimes these are the only methods of funding that we have that can provide the leverage we need to sustain our economy, to provide jobs in our community, and to keep our communities moving right along. So let me give you just a small example of my community. As I say, we're a community of 10,000. We use CDBG money, which we call Community Focus Fund money in Indiana, to construct a facility for Council on the Aging. We cooperated with the county, with the city, and with some private money to leverage that. Not just to provide the social services, but then leveraging that project with the Department of Transportation money, we were able to establish a public transportation system in our community that gets people to work, that gets people home from work, and helps provide jobs to the drivers, the dispatchers, and the support services, all of which in the small community help fire those engines of economic growth. CDBG is essential to small communities because sometimes it is the last and very best hope for sustaining hometown Indiana, hometown USA.
My name is Setti Warren. I'm the mayor of Newton, Massachusetts, and I'm the chair of the Community Development Committee for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm so pleased and proud to join counties, National League of Cities, and the leadership of my own conference led by President Kouts and Tom Cochran. I'm really pleased that they made the effort to do the work and research behind what this program really means to communities. So thank you for your work and your leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, at a time when our unemployment level hovers close to 9%, at a time when seniors are trying to keep their homes heated, at a time when young people are struggling to get out of school, the House of Representatives voted to gut this program by 66% from last year. H.R. 1. That is one of the most irresponsible acts in government that I have seen. Folks, and let me tell you why. It's not just about numbers. As a mayor, and you just heard from President Kouts, every day our decisions are value statements. There's decisions around where we spend money and where we invest in the future. To cut a program like this, Community Development Block Grants, one of the most successful programs in American history, innovative for mayors, 36 years, supported by bipartisan efforts. We've just heard about the economy. We just heard about the loss of jobs in our economy. This program has created over 250,000 jobs in 6 years. It's affected over 14 million people, ensured that people have roofs over their head. I've been holding roundtable discussions across my state of Massachusetts. I've been to Boston, New Bedford, Pittsfield, Methuen. I was just in Boston the other day. Small business owner keeping his business afloat with $20,000. He was able to create this year 70 jobs. Small business owner. You talk about leverage, that's leverage. I was out in Pittsfield just 2 weeks ago. I sat with a construction firm, a roundtable, family owned, able to employ people in their own community, do work in affordable housing, and also do renovations for people with disabilities. That's leverage. So, folks, we've got to engage the members of the United States Senate. That's what we've been doing in Massachusetts, all across the country. I've been joined by many mayors who are doing great work, Mayor Nutter, Mayor of Akron, others that are here. We've got to engage members of the Senate. We've got to make sure they know that this isn't a numbers or political exercise. These are people's lives. And this is a true way to keep this economy moving at a time when we need to. So I look forward to working with you in the coming weeks. We got to get the folks that are affected by all of the great work of community development block grants, and we've got to send a message, and we've got to engage to make sure we protect what's important in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad to stand up here with my colleagues, and I'm Rushern Baker. I'm the Prince George's County Executive, brand new to the job, and my good friend, the mayor of Newton, Massachusetts. If he had said Springfield, Massachusetts, I would have given him a round of applause because that's my hometown. So,
I love Springfield.
you know, it is important that as we stand here today and talk about CDBG funds, that we use the words leverage and investment. I just released my budget, the first budget for me in the county, and we've made tremendous cuts. We had to make cuts in public safety, we had to make cuts in our education system, we had to make cuts because the state is rolling down cuts towards us at the local level. But we also in that budget made investments. We invested in economic development growth because we know in the long run, creating jobs and opportunities is what's going to get us back to what we should be doing. That is what we're talking about here today. I can tell you firsthand because that's how I started my working career, working for a nonprofit that used CDBG funds to help create the Washington, D.C. you see today. I can tell you it didn't look that way when I came here in '78 to go to Howard University. It was because of the investments this government made in nonprofits, in municipalities, so that we could create jobs and opportunities and affordable housing. In Prince George's County, we have over $16 million requests from our municipalities, which I have 28 of, to use these funds to leverage nonprofits. What we are talking about here today is not spending money. It's not spending money. It's investing. It's leveraging. It's doing what we should do to create jobs, opportunities, and a better quality of life for people who live in this great nation. And so therefore, I am glad to stand here with my colleagues, and we're going to fight to make sure that Congress hears us loud and clear. Thank you very much.
At this time, we will open the floor for questions. Yes, ma'am.
The administration and some others have criticized the program as not being targeted enough to the most economically distressed communities. Do you think that's a fair criticism? And if so, would you support a change to make it more targeted?
To answer your question, first of all, I appreciate the administration, and we appreciate the administration's effort around community development block grants. President Obama actually increased the amount of money invested in CDBG funding in 2008. This is a program that affects communities all across the country. Those that have socioeconomic problems in them and have people who are living on the edge, literally, trying to keep, as I said, heat on in their homes, young people who are struggling to find a way to get their GED, and also jobs. You just heard this incredible stories around small amounts of money that are able to be leveraged to create jobs for people in communities all across this country. HUD's had terrific guidelines in place, and they're followed stringently by mayors and counties across the country. So we follow, they're formulaic, and they're targeted towards areas and communities that are most in need, whether it be infrastructure, affordable housing, or folks that need social services. So they've had those guidelines in place for many, many years, and we found them to be successful. And we've also found them to be places where we have enough flexibility so we can leverage the kind of funding we have to create the jobs and protect people the way we should.
Spent, but where the money goes.
Yes, well, HUD has very stringent guidelines around it. They're very strict. We don't think that we do need to change those guidelines. What we need is more resources within each one of those categories, and that's what we're looking for.
One of the other things that I think we have to be careful of when we move away from block grants to competitive grants,
That's right.
your smaller cities, your smaller counties, your rural areas, they can't afford to hire folks that can write grants, and so they're put at a very strong disadvantage when you do that. And so that's one of the things that we're very concerned about, is a move from block grants to competitive type grants.
And one of the things that we have to make sure that we pay attention to, when you go to competitive grants, and all of us compete for them, they're not sustainable. You have to look at this program because it is the only program that is a formula program that comes directly to cities. And yet, at the same time, our taxpayers pay so much into the federal treasury. And let's not forget that, because we have to be very transparent in the way that we apply for these programs, for this formula program. And in my city, it goes through about 3 hearings. The federal government requires us to have hearings on these and to adopt the money that we spent on these programs, invest in these programs.
Anyone? Yes.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from your meetings on the Hill about the ability to prevent cutbacks to this program, given that even the president has proposed cutting it?
Can you repeat that, please, sir?
Sorry, what kind of feedback have you gotten from members of Congress about, efforts to prevent cuts?
From the members of Congress to prevent cuts.
What, from the National League of Cities standpoint, most of our members have been on the Hill for the last 2 days, and most of the feedback has been one, that thank you for coming, thank you for telling how important the program is, and it's a tough decision we had to make, but we're still urging them to please realize CDBG is very helpful, not only jobs, but after-school funding. In my city of Charlotte, North Carolina, we spend about $2.4 million of CDBG funding to educate over about 120,000 kids in our school system. So CDBG funding is very important. That's the message we send in on the Hill.
They do tell us that everything is on the table, and we understand that. And as we have said, that we'd like them to really evaluate every one of these programs and to look at the output and the return on investment of all of these programs. And that's why we're going to continue to come back to talk about the economic impact. And one of our jobs is to educate, is to help them understand what it does on the local level and the return on those investments and the amount of money that is being leveraged and that input into the federal treasury.
Senator Harkin had some comments to make. Well, first of all, my name is Bill Gluba, mayor of the city of Davenport, Iowa, about 100,000 population. And let me put a little different slant on this, first of all. And let me just refer to scriptures here, basically. Whatever you do the least of my brethren, you do unto me. Whatever you do the least of my brethren, you do unto me. And those of us recall Sermon on the Mount, spiritual, corporal works of mercy. That's what it's all about. And in this case, ladies and gentlemen, the least of our brethren are the hundreds of thousands of homeless children, mothers, family members, elderly, and homeless veterans who nightly seek out a place to sleep in a homeless shelter in many of our major cities that is funded by community development block grant money and staffed by volunteers. A draconian cut in community development block grant funds is clearly a cruel and vicious assault on the least of our brethren, homeless families with small children, low-income elderly, and displaced veterans. These cuts are truly immoral and make a mockery of these Judeo-Christian values that we say we talk about, especially on the floors of Congress and in the Senate of this United States. These cuts are also, as it's been pointed out, are job killers, since a great deal of the community development block money goes to job creation, economic development, and transportation, so that low-income people, when they do and if they can find a job in this economy, can get to work. It's outrageous for Washington to have bestowed almost $1 trillion on TARP bailout funds for big banks and Wall Street, and now cut community development block grant money. Especially since Wall Street took this tax money, taxpayer money, and then rewarded themselves with billions of dollars in salary increases and bonuses. Congress took care of them. Why don't they take care of the working people of this country? And these are the same Wall Street bankers and hedge fund managers who were responsible for causing the worst economic meltdown since the Great Depression. What an insult to the American people. Bonuses for Wall Street, jobs for Wall Street barons, but soup bones for everyone else. So let me just say how hypocritical and tragic of our congressmen to do this to our people. This demonstrates how out of touch so many of them really are. And in closing, may God have mercy on their darkened souls unless they come through for the American people who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and we all will make ourselves available for questions afterwards. Thank you.
And Senator Harkin feels the same way, and he's chairman of the House Education Welfare Committee. Thank you.